Hello all my friends out there in the YouTube world. This is Josh. Welcome back to my garage. So for today's video, I'm going to be working on the transmission for my truck project. I had a mishap whenever I was pulling the engine and transmission out from the donor vehicle for this one, and whenever I was in the driveway and trying to separate the transmission from the engine so I can get the engine on the engine stand and roll the trans out of the way, I actually had accidentally broke off a tab on the bell housing of the transmission. I missed two bolts that were on the dust cover on the bottom. It's just because of the difference between like an LS style engine and the small and big block Chevys and stuff. You know, this being my first LS, I was like, ah man, I started prying on it and it wasn't completely separated yet. So anyway, initially it was like, oh darn, big swear word, anger, broken. And then I realized, oh, I actually have the tools to put this back together, and I actually think it'll make an interesting video. I haven't done much aluminum welding on the channel. Actually, I don't think I've done any so far, but that's what we're going to be doing today. I'll be showing like how to prep the case and the broken off tab for welding, both like surface prep as well as like geometry fitment, showing how to come up with a fixture, kind of a quickie homemade fixture for holding the part in place, because it's on the mating surface of the bell housing with the engine block, but I didn't want to do the welding with the engine block and the transmission mated together because I'd have to take the engine off the engine stand anyway. So what I did was I grabbed a mock-up case that I've got. So this truck here initially came with a 305 and a Turbo 350C, which is the lockup torque converter version of the Turbo 350 for a little better fuel economy. Well, that transmission was, the clutches were toast on it. It was burnt up, needed a rebuild, and I tore it apart just to learn about them, but I kept the case, the gutted case, for mock-up purposes because I wasn't really going to use it, and chucked all the rest of the bad parts. But what I did was I kept this case so that I could use it to mount the flush bracket on the bell housing. So anyway, this bracket, the bolt hole up here on an LS, or at least on my 6-liter, is not there on your traditional small block Chevy, but the rest of the tab locations are. Now this one's not used. There's actually no threads in the block in this hole, but you could bolt this onto a small block or big block Chevy and it would work with a spacer. I think there's adapters and stuff, but anyway, I'll show a little later how I got that clamped up and everything. But the whole point of this was, you know, it's not the end of the world when something breaks that's a little outside your comfort zone. That's hot rodding, things happen, but hopefully with some of the tips and tricks that I show here for aluminum welding and how I do it, including the equipment that I use for it and the machine settings, if something like this happens to you and you happen to have the equipment or have a buddy or a friend that has this equipment, maybe I can give you a head start into fixing the problem yourself instead of shelling out a lot of money for someone else like me to do the repair for you. So anyway, stay tuned, and we'll get started here on getting the prep and fitment done. So my weapons of choice for cleaning this up is a small and a large half-round bastard file. So you can see the curve on one side and flat on the other. Same thing on the small one. And I'm going to start with the big one here, just to kind of see what I can do. But I usually use the round part on this upper edge or something like this, and just push only. File, the teeth point in one direction, so don't hold on it and just slide back and forth, because when you drag backwards you're doing almost nothing. Just push, lift, push. That was a major pet peeve of one of my instructors in high school, actually. One of the things that got me into doing this type of stuff was a jewelry and metalworking class that I took as an art class. And so we all had a set of small files like this, and it would drive the teacher absolutely bonkers when someone would sit on there and just do that. So I try and spread the word that a file cuts in one direction, so you don't need to sit on there and just drag on it. And if any of you have ever heard like kind of a worn file, or if you're filing on the edge of a thin piece of metal, if you're dragging it backwards and forward, you get that squeak that's almost like you can feel it in your teeth, you know, and just, it's awful. But I'm knocking off about 1/8 of an inch wide land on this material where it's going to be touching. So I'll try and point it out with this piece. This surface right here is where the break took place. So at this point right here, this straight portion, it's only maybe 1/8 of an inch thick, and then about 3/8 in this spot and this spot where it was in contact. So I'm nipping off the edge about 1/8 of an inch wide. I'm going to take this edge down and all the way over here. I'm going to do the same thing on the transmission case. And that's going to give a groove for the weld to sit in, and a portion of cleaner metal, rather than just the pure raw cast that was kind of dirty that we cleaned up just with a wire wheel. You know, that was just kind of the first step. So I'm going to go through and knock all this down. Now let's turn this around and see where I can get it on this side. So this is going to be sitting up. Yes, I need to knock that edge and some of this edge back. Okay. The nice part about this tab, it's got some square edges that I can clamp on, so it clamps pretty well. And don't make the same mistake of over tightening or anything and breaking this tab now too. Okay. I'm here to clean some of this up. This is where I'll switch over to the smaller file and that edge. It's not for precision as much as just getting around this vise and getting my hands on it. I think I need to clamp it in a way that you guys aren't going to be able to see very well. I guess I could do it on that side. Alright. Yeah, this is something that's different. Working so that other people can see what you're doing. Right here you can see the advantage of using this half round file. Let's see if I need to adjust the camera a little bit. It can sit in this contour and get just the edge that I want. You can use a flat one. I mean, it's a flat edge here. It's just harder. Use that. Get in here with the little one. Now it takes longer, obviously, with the little file, but it's a little more precise. But with aluminum, the more rasp style ones work pretty good for just taking off bulk material like I'm trying to do right here. Still need to knock that part of that off. There's an edge right here that I haven't cleaned up. It's adjacent to the weld. You want to get that paint off of there. Three things I hate smelling when welding: burning paint, burning powder coat, and grass when welding a mower deck. Anybody who's done that can relate. Knock this corner down some as well. I'll hit my pedal and let a little gas flow initially before I actually start the weld, just to purge the line. So I got an initial tack going, and you'll notice with welding on this cast stuff, it'll start to melt and get shiny, and then it'll get dull again as the contaminants get pulled out. And the way to clear those contaminants and get it to look better is actually to dab in some filler metal. So you want to try and get your filler in there as quick as possible to kind of establish a clean puddle. So I got a tack on this side. I'm going to put a tack right here, right where that filler is pointing to, and establish a tack on either side before going to town, because I don't want it lifting up on one side. I don't know if you can hear, but I establish that this is my foot on the pedal. I'll rock it down, starts to melt, lift it off a bit, add the filler, and then ramp your foot off to take the heat out, rather than just snapping it off. Because if you just let your foot right off, then the puddle will cool really quickly, and it'll get a dimple in it. Where if you slowly let it off, it'll have a tendency to solidify more slowly, and then you don't get that kind of shrinkage happening. I'm gonna use this thing as a stainless wire brush and clean some of the soot around from the weld. Like I said, this transmission case stuff is just a dirty material to weld anyway. Alright, I'm going to weld this top surface and then this top surface, and then I'll weld in between. It gets easier each time as the temperature comes up. One thing you can do is take a little torch and heat around here to get the temperature up initially, but I didn't do that. It's looking okay. See if I can pull it in and show you a little closer here what it looks like. So, kind of filled in the corner there. Like I said, it doesn't look like a row of dimes. Doesn't look terrible either. And then this side, you see I didn't run it all the way to the edge. I'll get that when I unclamp this and weld the other side. But looking okay so far. I'll get this camera set up and finish this weld on this side. Alright, and this is some thick material right at this point to be welding with this kind of equipment at home, but seems to be working okay. I think we're going to switch to the thicker filler rod for this next part. There we go. Back to the smaller stuff. There's some contaminants right there. Come back with the wire brush. And it's just stuff coming out of the base metal. Spitting and popping. Okay. Well, this top side looks pretty good. It's not perfect, like I said, not like row of dimes, but that'll do. Nice fillet, especially around this heavier block, and everything's stuck together all right, and it burned in pretty good. There's a lot of soot. Like I said, the aluminum is porous and just absorbs all the junk, you know, oil, whatever thing, road grime. So you're never going to weld on a oil pan, transmission case, anything like that, a bell housing that's been on the road and have a clean weld. You're just never going to get it clean. So do as best as you can. And I was experimenting with the 2 different sizes of filler, and I actually found that the thinner filler rod, the 1/16, allowed me to dab more often, and that would kind of clean the puddle up. When I was trying to use the bigger one, it would melt a larger blob into the weld puddle, but it was like not being as often, the other contaminants were boiling up more, so using the thinner filler rod in this instance was helpful. Alright, now you can kind of see where we gotta stick this together on the inside. I'm going to try and weld this oh, there we go. I'm going to try and weld this inner area right here, but if I just can't get to it, or it's just not working, I'm not going to give it too much thought. If I can weld this front face over to that corner, and then from this edge out and over, that'll be good enough to hold. And then I'll finish the weld by dressing it with the file down on this spot and that spot to make it flush. But so far it's looking pretty good. See if I can't get this camera set up where maybe you can see what I'm doing, and start laying down some more weld bead. Woohoo! Okay. see if I can get it. This last bit, I'm going to get left-handed, go from that center over to the side. Get comfortable. Well, here we are. Did manage to get all the way around. 100% perimeter for the brake. So that should be plenty strong. It's not 100% penetration, but it's good enough. All I got left is basically just knock that nub that's up there and this one right here on this plane down. And the rest of it I'm going to leave as is. I want the weld profile there for the strength. I don't want to grind it down, like I said, because it's not fully penetrated. Usually, like whenever I was doing this for a living, I would have the machine cranked up to 200 amps and really burn it in good, and then get it from the other side so it'd be fully penetrated. With this one at 125 amps and with the duty cycle in the garage, pardon me, I didn't have the time to really put the heat into it to get that full penetration. But I mean, the tab is on there, so I'm really, with the dowel over here, the other dowel on this side, 2 bolts here and 2 bolts there, it would be fine. This one's actually going to have, you know, another bolt there and up here, so that added that to the strength. But also on these things, the dust pan has bolts holding the transmission to the engine, so this thing ain't going anywhere. I could have left it undone, but at least now I know, you know, it's not going to be open and have any rainwater or anything come down from the top side. It'll look better, be marginally stronger, and yeah, now I can go ahead and get my torque converter reinstalled in this thing and start getting it put back together. I do think I want to blast it with the pressure washer beforehand, and I've got a new gear select and neutral safety switch to put on there. But well, that about wraps it up for this episode. Thanks for sticking around. Let me show you a little bit of aluminum welding. It's felt good to do that. I haven't had that really on the channel much. Mostly wire feed and a little bit of TIG repair on the 55. But you know, plan moving forward. Keep working on this truck. I have a huge pile of parts. I've just been waiting for my like motivation to get stuff done. So I've got a couple of motivations sitting out in the driveway, and instead of just pushing this thing out of the way, and making room for those other cars. I'm actually going to assemble everything, because one, that'll give me room in the garage to keep working, and two, I'll have something to drive around while I'm working on those other ones. But we'll have a few of these episodes for a little while until I get this truck put together, and then we'll be moving into a bunch of Tri-5 content after the first of the year. So I'm gonna keep giving this thing what I got at the moment, and you guys keep watching. Take care.